There is a massive backlash over proposed changes to the Road Accident Fund. Now, in the main, it aims to transition the fund from a compensation to a social benefits model. So what exactly does this mean? And the question that we ask is, would this mean the abolishment of lump sum payments for annuity payouts? It would also see compensation for pain, suffering, disfigurement and shock also being revisited. Hit and run collisions will also no longer be covered. But let's discuss this in greater detail with legal expert Abigail Ngobene, who joins us this morning. A very good morning to you, Abigail, and thank you for your time. When we look at the changes that we would like to highlight today, let's look at some of the exclusions that have now been advocated from the claimant's perspective.
Good morning to you and good morning to the viewers, and thank you very much for having me this morning. Yes, there are a lot of changes that seem to have been proposed in terms of the amendment bill. Some of them you have mentioned that the hit and run, the victims of road accident who cannot identify the driver of that particular motor vehicle will not be entitled to claim. And that is very concerning given the high rate of accidents that we have in South Africa. Not only that, the act also, the proposed bill also says the non-South Africans, people who are not South Africans by birth or what we normally refer to as foreign nationals, will also be excluded from being covered from the act, as well as those payments where a person is currently we do get payments for general damages, what we call pain and suffering and shock, where a lump sum will be given to a person depending on the nature of the injury. The proposed bill also excludes such kind of things. So there are quite a lot of exclusions that we will see happening should the act be enacted in its current form.
Let's look at the exclusions when it comes to medical payments. What are the different changes that are being advocated for?
Well, you would remember that there's a common law claim for medical insurance companies, what we call medical aids, where a member of a medical aid has been involved in an accident and medical aid pay for those bills. Currently, they do claim against the Road Accident Fund and they are paid back. But what the Act seemed to be proposing, the bill that seemed to be proposing, they're saying where those insurances have paid, such payments will not be covered, meaning there will be no compensation, reimbursement of those medical aids going forward, which we will see the issue of escalating premiums going up, given the fact that the medical aids will also have to protect themselves.
I mean, I noticed as well, what is being proposed is that claimants now need to pay from their own pockets first and then claim from the Road Accident Fund a bit later. What happens then to people who don't have the money to cover their medical expenses? What is their fate going to be in this regard?
That is very, very concerning. I think that is why a lot of institutions now have voiced their concern, and I'm echoing their words. We have those attorneys, the Plaintiff Attorneys Association that are coming to party, the Law Society, the NADEL, the Black Lawyers Association. We are all echoing one words to say this is going to affect mainly the poorest of the poor, people who come from rural areas who are not employed, who cannot be able to get this kind of treatment. And it's concerning that currently for a person to qualify, they already have to pay a lot of money to qualify in terms of that what we call a RAF4, a serious injury assessment, where you pay medical experts for you to prove the injuries that you have suffered. And given all these changes, it's going to be quite strenuous on the poorest of the poor, and it's going to be a hopeless situation for them because they will not afford to pay for these medical bills.
Traditionally, and as it stands now, Abigail, there is a lump sum that is being paid to the claimant for loss of income. But this is also going to change. Talk to us about the changes there.
Yeah, they are proposing that, you remember currently that there's what we call a loss of earnings, where a person who has been employed will quantify the amount that will be lost due to the injury they've sustained. There's also what we call a loss of support, where a breadwinner had died. But what the changes seem to be coming with, they say, in an event where a breadwinner have lost an income, they will not receive a lump sum, but they will be paid a monthly annuity. But when they die, their family will be left in distrust, meaning they will not be able to claim anything which will have been left, regardless of whether or not that person left the minor children who were dependent on that person, whether or not there are other dependents who cannot live without that person. So it's going to be very, very difficult. Remember that in South Africa, there's a high rate of unemployment. And if a person gets injured and they're unable to proceed working, they will have to receive that small portion of money that is subject to RAF reassessing it in the long time. That's what the bill says. But then if those kind of proposed changes are enacted, I believe you me, all other families, this will escalate rate of people who are suffering, families that goes to bed without food, because that breadwinner would have died and they will not be entitled to claim for any support whatsoever.
I notice as well, Abigail, that some of the changes as far as where the accident happens is now going to be quite important. Talk to us about those exclusions, because beforehand, whether the accident happened on a public road or a private road or, in a driveway or a parking lot, you would be able to claim from the Road Accident Fund, but not so according to the current propositions.
Yes, the proposals now, in terms of the suggested bill, says only the claims that arise from the accident which occurred on the public roads, meaning that it also excludes the roads that are on the farms, the roads that are in the private estate. And I tell you, with this the high rate of accidents which occur in South Africa, there will be a lot of fatalities that happen in various roads of our country, and people will not be paid. This, I don't even think, from where I'm sitting, that it will also pass the constitutional test. There are a lot of issues that, if this bill is to be enacted today, will be found to be in contravention with the Constitution, given the rights that South Africans have.
What then, Abigail, is the way forward as far as practitioners within this space is concerned and this bill?
Look, with us as practitioners, you remember that what is our duty, regardless of or going beyond the fee that we always charge. What is our duty is to protect the interest of our clients. Our duty is to ensure that the victims of the road accidents are given the compensation that is equivalent to the injury that they have sustained. And with my experience in this space, I've learned throughout the years that there are tendencies where seriously injured clients are undercompensated. They're given small money compared to what they have suffered and what they will lose in the future. And I think this particular bill does not protect the rights of a client. And going forward, it's something that we're going to take head on. And I'm not the only one. There are a lot of institutions that protect attorneys and advocates, and they are on it. I'm counting amongst them. There's also the Law Society, the NADEL, the Black Lawyers Association. There are a lot, the SAULA, a lot of them have voiced their concern. And as we stand, we have a lot of objections to this particular bill, and I don't think this bill in its current form will be accepted if it is to be challenged in the court of law.
And we'll certainly be keeping an eye on developments on that front. Thank you so much, Abigail, for your time.